You know that feeling when the air pressure drops right before a thunderstorm? That specific heavy silence where the birds stop singing and the leaves flip over? That was what the conference room felt like on a Tuesday morning in November. Instead of thunder, the impending disaster was wearing a slim-fit navy suit that was 2 sizes too tight and leather loafers with absolutely no socks. My name is Valerie Vance. For the last 7 years, I have been the client solutions lead for a global logistics firm called Apex Logistics Global. That vague title is intentional. It means I fix things. When a customized algorithm for a Fortune 100 client routes cargo incorrectly at 3 o'clock in the morning, I fix it. I do not panic. I do not scream. I write with a fountain pen that cost more than my first car, know the names of my clients' children, and act as the invisible glue holding a $5 billion portfolio together. The crown jewel was Harrison Brooks. He represents $5 billion of annual contract value and hates standard agreements. He signs alliances based on trust and a handshake. He is old school. He hates slide decks. He hates buzzwords. He hates people who try to sell him unsolicited services. We had a rhythm, Brooks and I. We spoke in shorthand. A nod meant yes. A silence meant fix it. And a phone call meant the building was burning down. In 7 years, he had never threatened to leave, not once. Then came the change. Our chief executive officer, Robert Henderson, decided we needed to modernize. Apparently, consistent record-breaking profits were too boring. We needed disruption. We needed synergy. We needed a vice president of strategic growth who looked like he had been manufactured in a lab funded by social media influencers. Bradley Hayes breezed into the boardroom like he was hosting a talk show. He had the teeth. He had the tan. He had the energy of a golden retriever that had just ingested a bag of espresso beans. Team, he started, clapping his hands together. The sound echoed in the heavy silence. I am here to tell you that good is not good enough anymore. We need to be great. We need to be agile. We need to trim the fat. I sat in the back, taking notes in my leather-bound notebook. I have seen men like Bradley before. They come in every 3 years, break everything they touch, collect a massive severance package, and fail upward. Usually, I just keep my head down, protect my clients from their stupidity, and wait for them to implode. It is a survival mechanism. Speaking of survival, I knew how these corporate stories went. You are probably scrolling through your phone, hiding from your own version of Bradley. If you want to see exactly how I dismantled this man's career, pay close attention. You will want a front row seat for the cleanup. Bradley's eyes scanned the room. When they landed on me, there was a flicker of assessment. He did not see a shark. He saw a 48-year-old woman in a charcoal blazer. He saw legacy. He saw furniture. He did not know that 3 months ago, Brooks's entire European distribution network almost collapsed because of a server migration error. He did not know that I manually coordinated the rerouting of 45 cargo jets while sitting on my kitchen floor in my pajamas, ensuring Brooks did not lose a single penny. Brooks did not even know. I never told him. That is the job. The client sleeps well because I do not. After the meeting, the chief executive officer, looking nervous, ushered Bradley over to me. Bradley, this is Valerie, the chief executive officer said, sweating slightly. She handles the Brooks account. It is our keystone. Bradley smiled. It did not reach his eyes. Valerie, a pleasure. I have heard interesting things. You have been on this account for a long time. 7 years, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I offered my hand. His grip was moist and weak, like holding a dead fish. 7 years, he repeated, letting out a performance of a sigh. That is a lifetime in this industry. Maybe too long. You get complacent. You stop seeing the forest for the trees. My blood temperature dropped about 10 degrees. Mr. Brooks values consistency. He is not fond of change for the sake of change. Bradley chuckled like I was a child. Oh, Valerie, everyone loves change if you sell it right. I have been looking at the numbers. The margins on the Brooks account are stagnant. We are over-servicing him. Too many hours, too much hand-holding. We are leaving money on the table. We are not selling him a service, Bradley. I said, my voice hardening, just a fraction. We are selling him reliability. If we cut support, he walks. Nobody walks away from a contract this size. He is bluffing, Bradley said, waving his hand dismissively. But there is a new sheriff in town now. I want you to set up a quarterly business review for next week. I want to meet this guy. And Valerie, I will be leading the presentation. I stared at him. The Brooks Review was sacred ground. We did not use slides. We sat in leather armchairs, drank black coffee, and discussed global logistics. Bringing Bradley into that room was like bringing a clown to a funeral. "Bradley," I said, "Brooks does not do standard presentations." "He will book it," he interrupted. "And send me your slide deck by Friday. I will need to polish it. We need to dazzle him. Lots of graphs, hockey stick growth. You know the drill." I watched Bradley walk away. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, sounding like a flat line. He had just ordered me to construct a bomb and place it under our company's foundation. He had no idea that the stagnant margins he complained about resulted from me quietly fixing internal errors before they reached the client. He did not know that I was the only reason the Brooks account existed at all. Back at my desk, I accepted Bradley's calendar invite. If he wanted a show, I would give him one. First, I had to prepare for war. I opened a new folder on my private drive. I named it The Exit, and then I picked up my phone and texted my contact in the legal department. Hypothetically, I wrote, "How enforceable is the non-compete regarding clients I brought in prior to the 2018 merger?" The response was encouraging. Under California law, specifically California Business and Professions Code Section 16600, non-compete agreements restricting employees from engaging in a lawful profession are generally void. My contact confirmed that since I brought Brooks in prior to the merger, the non-solicitation clause would not apply if the client initiated the split. The storm was not coming. It was here, and Bradley had just handed me the umbrella. On Wednesday morning, we held the prep session for the Brooks quarterly business review. I walked in with a concise 3-page briefing document. It contained the key performance indicators Brooks actually cared about: on-time delivery rates, customs clearance velocity, and the error reduction metrics from the new Singapore hub. It was clean. It was factual. It was boring to anyone who did not understand that in logistics, boring equals profitable. Bradley was already there, connecting his laptop to the 85-inch monitor. He was wearing a fleece vest today, one of those corporate items that scream venture capital, even though we work in freight shipping. "Valerie," he boomed, "grab a seat. Let's make some magic." He pulled up a slide presentation. It had 40 slides. 40. A 1-hour meeting with a man who checked his watch if you spoke for more than 30 seconds without making a point. "Okay, look at this opener," Bradley said, beaming. The first slide featured a stock photo of a diverse group of people high-fiving on top of a mountain. The text overlay read, "Synergizing tomorrow's velocity today." I felt a migraine physically spawn behind my left eye. "Bradley," I said, keeping my voice level, "Mr. Brooks is not going to like this. He is a data guy. He wants to know why his shipping containers in Hamburg were delayed by 4 hours last month and how he fixed it." Bradley waved a hand, dismissing my entire career. "Details, Valerie. You are too in the weeds. This is a strategy review. We need to sell the vision. We need him to see that we are an artificial intelligence first, blockchain-enabled, cloud-native partner." "We do not use blockchain," I pointed out. "It is aspirational," he countered. He clicked to the next slide. It was a graph where the vertical axis was not labeled, but the line went straight up. "This is what I am talking about, emotional resonance." We spent the next 3 hours dismantling my work. Every time I tried to insert a slide about operational stability, Bradley deleted it. "Too dense," he would say, or "boring," or my personal favorite, "This does not pop." He replaced my analysis of the third quarter fuel surcharges with a slide titled "The Journey to Wow," featuring a cartoon rocket ship. A cartoon rocket ship. I need you to understand. I tried one last time, desperation clawing at my throat. Mr. Brooks is 70 years old. He built his empire on trucking and cold storage. If you show him a cartoon rocket ship, he is going to think we are mocking him. Bradley stopped clicking. He turned to me, his face dropping the cool boss mask to reveal the petty tyrant underneath. "You know, Valerie, I am getting a lot of resistance from you. I was told you were a team player." The accusation hung in the air, the team player trap. The moment you disagree with a bad idea, you are labeled as difficult. "I am trying to protect the relationship," I said. "No, you are trying to protect your turf," Bradley snapped. "You have been gatekeeping this client for years. Maybe that's why the account is stale. You are afraid of new ideas because they expose the fact that you have been coasting." Coasting. I thought about the Christmas morning I spent on a conference call with customs agents in Mumbai. I thought about the time I personally flew to Detroit to hand-deliver a replacement part for Brooks' assembly line because the shipping courier was snowed in. Coasting, I repeated, tasting the word. It tasted like ash. Look, Bradley sighed, checking his smartwatch. I do not need you to present. Clearly, you are not on board with the new vision. I will handle the talking. You just be there too. I do not know. Take notes, answer technical questions if he gets bogged down. But let me drive. He was demoting me in my own meeting. He was cutting me out of the conversation I had sustained for nearly a decade. A younger version of me would have gone to the chief executive officer. But I looked at Bradley, at his unearned confidence, his empty buzzwords, his complete lack of respect for the work, and something inside me shifted. Okay, I said softly. Bradley looked surprised. Okay, you are the vice president, I said, closing my notebook. If this is the direction you want to take, I will support you. You do the talking, and I will just sit in. Great, Bradley clapped again. We are going to crush this, Valerie. On Friday morning, Mr. Brooks arrived at 2 minutes before 10 o'clock in the morning. He wore a gray wool suit, carrying only a single fountain pen, no laptop, no phone. He walked in and shook my hand firmly. Valerie, good to see you. And you, Harrison, I said. It was one of the few times I used his first name. It was our sign of mutual respect. Bradley swooped in. Mr. Brooks, I am Bradley Hayes, Vice President of Strategic Growth. Huge fan of your work. Truly disruptive stuff. Brooks looked at Bradley's extended hand, then at his face. He shook it briefly, like he was touching a wet railing. Disruptive, Brooks repeated, the word rolling around his mouth like a heavy stone. We sell gravel and manage logistics, Mr. Hayes. I do not disrupt, I deliver. Exactly, Bradley pivoted, undeterred. But how we deliver, that is where the magic happens. Have a seat. Brooks sat at the head of the table. I sat to his right, my usual spot. Bradley stood at the front, clicker in hand. Gentlemen, Valerie, Bradley began, dimming the lights even further. Let's talk about the future. The first slide hit the screen. Synergizing tomorrow's velocity today. I heard Brooks inhale slowly through his nose. It was a long, ragged sound. Bradley launched into his speech. He talked about vertical integration. He used the phrase blue sky thinking 3 times in the first 5 minutes. He paced around the room, making big sweeping gestures. I watched Brooks. He was not looking at the screen. He was looking at his hands, folded on the mahogany table. He was perfectly still. 10 minutes in, Bradley clicked to the rocket ship slide. We want to take your logistics into the stratosphere. We are talking about a complete reimagining of your supply chain ecosystem. Brooks raised a hand just 2 inches off the table. Bradley stopped mid-sentence. Yes, questions? I love questions. Where is the third quarter report? Brooks asked. His voice was quiet, raspy, and dangerous. Bradley blinked. Well, we are looking forward, Harrison. The third quarter numbers are in the appendix. What I really want to focus on is our future plan. I lost 2 shipments in Rotterdam last week, Brooks said. Valerie fixed it. I want to know why it happened. I want to know the variance on fuel costs. I want to know why your new software integration failed 3 times on Monday. Bradley froze. He did not know any of this. He had not read the briefing. He had not listened to me. Right. Bradley stammered, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Technical hiccups. Growing pains. If you look at the holistic view, Valerie, Brooks said, ignoring Bradley completely. He turned his chair slightly to face me. Explained the Rotterdam variance. I opened my mouth to speak. I had the numbers memorized. I knew exactly what had happened. A dock strike combined with a software patch glitch that I had manually overridden. But before I could get a word out, Bradley stepped between us. He physically stepped between me and the client, blocking my line of sight. Mr. Brooks, Bradley said, his voice taking on a condescending edge. Valerie does not need to bore you with the minutiae. She is support staff. She handles the tickets. I am here to discuss the strategy. We can have the tech team email you a document later if you really care about the small stuff. The room went absolute zero. Support staff. 7 years. Late nights. Holidays missed. Millions of dollars saved. Support staff. I looked at the back of Bradley's suit. Then I looked at Brooks. He was staring at Bradley with an expression of pure, unadulterated disbelief. I stood up. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor was loud in the silence. Valerie. Bradley turned, looking annoyed. We are in the middle of our presentation. You are right, Bradley, I said. My voice was calm, scarily calm. I am just support staff, and it sounds like you have the strategy all figured out. I picked up my notebook and my fountain pen. Where are you going? Bradley hissed, his eyes widening. I looked at Brooks. I held his gaze for a long second. A silent message passed between us. I am not doing this anymore. I am excusing myself, I said. I would not want to bore you with the minutiae. I walked to the door. Valerie, sit down. Bradley barked, panic finally cracking his voice. I did not turn around. I opened the heavy oak door and stepped into the hallway. As the door clicked shut behind me, I heard Brooks' voice, loud and clear for the first time. Sit down, Mr. Hayes, and turn on the lights. I walked straight to the elevator without packing. I was done, but the game had just begun. I took the subway home at 11 o'clock in the morning. It is a strange time to be underground. The car was empty, except for a few tourists who were arguing over a map and a street musician who looked too tired to play. I sat there, knees pressed together, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. I looked the same, but my entire professional identity was now in limbo. For 7 years, I had defined myself by my ability to carry the load. Now, I was just an insubordinate employee who had walked out of a high-stakes meeting. But there was a strange peace in that realization. My phone buzzed with missed calls from Bradley and the chief executive officer demanding my return. I turned the phone off completely. At my apartment, I made coffee, keeping my blazer on like armor. I needed to focus. I opened my laptop to compile years of forwarded emails documenting decisions made over my objections and ignored warnings. I had been careful over the years to keep a separate record of every time a manager tried to cut corners. Nothing proprietary, nothing that violated the non-disclosure agreement. Just documentation of decisions. I sorted them by date, creating a clear timeline. It was a digital insurance policy, a collection of cover-your-ass threads that showed the steady decay of operational standards under the new leadership. I spent 6 hours drafting a formal memo of record. I detailed the review preparation, the refusal to report factual data, and the public denigration. This was ammunition. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I turned my phone back on to dozens of messages. Bradley pleaded with me to return and apologize, calling my walkout career suicide. He still did not get it. He thought Brooks was mad because I left. He did not realize Brooks was mad because Bradley stayed. Then a text popped up from Harrison Brooks. That was the most impressive presentation I have seen in years, the text read. I replied that I aimed to please. Brooks wrote back, he does not know anything, does he? He likes rocket ships. I'm flying back to Zurich tonight. We need to talk. Not about this contract, about the future. Are you legally exposed? I texted back that my non-compete was void under California Business and Professions Code Section 16600, and a client-initiated transition would not constitute a breach. Brooks replied, good. Sit tight. Let him sweat for a week. I am pausing all renewals. I put the phone down. Let him sweat. I requested stress-induced medical leave using some of the 6 weeks of accrued sick leave I had never taken. In limbo, I watched my work email burn. Bradley emailed asking for my Shanghai port contact, which I ignored. An hour later, the chief executive officer emailed. Valerie, we need to talk. Bradley says you are ghosting us. The Brooks account is at risk. I did not reply. I was learning the power of absence. When you are the one holding up the ceiling, you do not need to push it down. You just have to step away and let gravity do the work. By Wednesday, my silence was deafening. The thing about Bradley's strategy to cut support hours was that he actually implemented it the Monday I did not show up. He sent a memo saying all communication would go through a ticketing system. On Thursday, Toby Collett, the junior analyst, messaged me that Bradley had ignored a priority flag on a Munich shipment, leaving critical vaccines to spoil on the tarmac. This was negligence. I had a choice. I could let the shipment spoil to destroy Bradley, or I could intervene because people needed those vaccines. I could not fix it officially, but I quietly texted Dieter, my Munich contact, to manually override the container to cold storage as a personal favor. Dieter replied, for you, done. But tell your new boss he is an idiot. He filed the paperwork as dry goods. I screenshotted the exchange and added it to my exit folder. I texted Toby back, Munich is handled. Keep your head down. Document everything. Back at the office, the chief executive officer sent Clara Jenkins, the head of human resources, to call me. Valerie, Clara said, her voice dripping with artificial concern. We are family here. Bradley wants to welcome you back. You will report to him directly for daily task management. Clara, I said, did Bradley tell you about the Munich shipment? Ask him about the vaccines. Ask him why the client's legal team is reviewing service-level agreement violations under Uniform Commercial Code Section 2715 for consequential damages. I hung up. 10 minutes later, a system alert showed Bradley had initiated a full data export of the Brooks account. He was panicking, trying to delete evidence. He did not realize the system logs every export. Then the email came from Harrison Brooks, copying my personal address. Notice of contract review. Effective immediately, we are suspending all new initiatives. We are conducting a review of service-level agreement violations, specifically the Munich vaccine incident. We expect a formal response by end of day. Please ensure Valerie is present at the upcoming strategy summit. Her absence has been noted. They asked me to come in on Monday. I dressed in all black, bringing no notebook or pen. The office atmosphere was tense. Toby gave me a covert thumbs up as I walked past. In the chief executive officer's office, Bradley was pacing, looking disheveled, while the chief executive officer looked defeated. Valerie, the chief executive officer said, forcing a smile. We need to reset. Red state. I repeated, remaining standing. Look, Bradley started. I admit it. I am a disruptor, but we need you back. Brooks is being difficult right now. Difficult, I said, or litigious? We need you to smooth it over, Bradley said. Call him. Tell him the Munich thing was a vendor error. Bradley demanded I lie and blame a vendor. I refused, prompting him to snap that it was my job. I placed my resignation on the desk, refusing to lie or report to Bradley. You cannot quit, Bradley yelled. We have the summit next week. You have to be there. Oh, I will be there, I said. Mr. Brooks requested my presence. As a courtesy to the client, I will attend. But I will be sitting in the audience watching you disrupt. The chief executive officer looked at the letter. Valerie, please. Let's talk numbers. It is not about the money, I said. It was about the principle. It was about the fact that they looked at my life's work and called it support staff. I reminded them that under California Business and Professions Code Section 16,600, the non-compete was void, and I was leaving. You think some startup is going to hire a 48-year-old logistics manager? Bradley sneered, smiling. I told Bradley that the market was built on relationships, which he had completely destroyed. I paused at the door. Bradley, by next week you will not even be working in this industry. I packed my desk, handing Toby a recruiter's number to use in 3 weeks. I went home and registered a new limited liability company, Vance Solutions, anticipating Brooks' next move at the summit. The fourth quarter strategy summit was held at the Ritz-Carlton. I wore a red dress, not look at me red, but blood in the water red. I arrived early and took a seat near the back. Bradley was on stage doing a sound check. He looked manic. The room filled with board members, investors, and key clients. Bradley spotted me and glared. Then the doors at the back opened. A heavy silence rippled. Harrison Brooks walked in with his chief financial officer, his legal counsel, and his chief technology officer. Bradley tapped the microphone. Welcome, everyone, to the future of logistics. He launched into his deck, showcasing a slide titled Case Study, Brooks Global, a Partnership Reimagined. He claimed that by streamlining communication through the ticketing system, they had saved 20% in operational costs. He was selling his failure as a feature. I felt a vibration in my purse, a text from Brooks. Are you ready? I replied, always. Brooks stood up. Excuse me, he said, his voice carrying without a microphone. Bradley stopped. Harrison, we usually save questions for the end. This is not a question, Brooks said. He walked down the center aisle. Mr. Hayes, those efficiency savings you claim, those savings came from firing the support staff who monitored my cold chain, which resulted in $400,000 of spoiled vaccines in Munich. Under Uniform Commercial Code Section 2715, we are holding you liable for the full consequential damages of that loss. A gasp went through the room. Board members sat up straight. That was a glitch, Bradley stammered. We fixed it. No, you did not, Brooks said. Valerie Vance fixed it from a coffee shop while she was on stress leave. I do not have a contract with Apex Logistics Global. I have a contract with Competence, and Competence has left the building. My legal team filed the immediate termination papers 10 minutes ago, citing material breach and gross negligence. He turned back to me. Valerie, are you coming? I stood up. I think I will, I said, walking down the aisle. We walked out as the microphone feedback drowned out Bradley's stuttering. We went to a steakhouse down the street. To competence, Brooks toasted, clinking his glass against mine. By the time the appetizers arrived, my phone was vibrating. Toby texted, "The chief executive officer is screaming. Bradley is crying. Security is escorting him out." Advanced Solutions flourished. I hired Toby, doubling his salary. Within 6 months, we had 12 employees and managed $12 billion in contracts. Apex Logistics Global collapsed and was sold for pennies, while Bradley was completely blacklisted. I looked at the exit folder on my desktop and dragged it to the trash. I did not need the insurance anymore. I was the insurance. I turned back to my work. For the first time in 7 years, I did not feel like I was holding up the sky. I was flying.